Riverdale's old money empress, Eleanor, woke up. I was 60 when the awakening hit. I was living inside one of those swap terrace novels, and I was the billionaire grandma. 5 days from now a car crash would kill me. Richard and Margaret would whisk the true home for the funeral, coddle the fake at every turn, watch the real girl wilt into depression, and finally let the imposter hand my life's work to the Sterlings on a silver platter. Furious, I moved the timetable up. I fetched the true child first, placed her under my own wing, and decided that not one scrap of the empire I had fought for would ever be tainted by an imposter. 1 Eleanor, here's the gift list from yesterday's birthday guests, James murmured at my side. I kneaded my temples. Give it to Margaret. These days my stamina fails quickly. I've left most household and corporate chores to Richard and Margaret. James didn't leave. I glanced up, he looked awkward. Margaret took Serena to Blue Haven for the weekend. I frowned. There was a mountain of unfinished business at home. When she was younger she wept to Richard that I refused to trust her with the house accounts, swearing she knew her humble birth disappointed me. Richard pleaded, so I handed the keys over and poured myself into the company. After a season she had botched everything and wanted to quit. Under pressure she stayed on, progressing only to barely competent. Once the granddaughter arrived she dumped every task on the staff and played full-time mom. I offered to raise the child, she refused. Richard indulged her, and together they spoiled the girl into a fragile, tantrum-throwing doll. The memory stoked my rage until the room spun and I blacked out. In the dream I opened a book and discovered we were all merely ink on paper. It told the tale of 2 swapped girls, with me cast as the grandmother. 5 days later the crash would end me. On the flight home Richard would notice a teen who resembled him, run a DNA test, learn the nurse had switched the babies, and drag his real daughter back racked with guilt. Margaret would step off the jet, hug the fake, and declare, "Serena is still my daughter, no one will steal the love we give her." Richard, equally attached to the child he had rocked for 18 years, would keep both girls. The fake would torment the true, Margaret would keep cheering, and the abandoned girl would fade and die. Talentless Richard would lose the company the minute I was gone. The fake would barter our holdings for a strategic marriage into the Sterling dynasty. Watching my life's effort signed away, I jerked awake. Only Richard sat beside me. "Mom, you're conscious." I gave a curt hum. "Where are Emery and Serena?" He shifted. "They're still in Blue Haven, couldn't get a flight." I snorted. "Couldn't or wouldn't?" He offered a sheepish smile and fell silent. "Bring them home," I said, exhausted. "I have announcements." I would not leave my blood at the mercy of the foster parasites another hour. Using the book's coordinates, I sent men to fetch her. The moment I saw the girl I understood Emery's instinctive dislike. The child mirrored not Richard, but me. I beckoned. She lifted frightened eyes, then dropped them. I clasped her bony hand. "Good girl, I'm your grandma. From today this is your home." She nodded. I asked her name. Silence stretched until 2 hoarse syllables slipped out, "Jowdy." Looking at the scrawny waif, I could tally every cruelty dealt by her fosters. I met her gaze. "That name ends now. Grandma will choose you a new one. You'll be Quinn Luna because I want you rooted like marsh grass, stubborn, unbreakable." A spark flared in her eyes, perhaps the first time anyone had fashioned hope for her. In the novel she had drifted like duckweed, convinced she belonged nowhere, until she simply dissolved. I would graft her to solid ground and teach her she decides her worth. 2 I refused to set foot outside on the date of my slated accident. A few days later Emery and Serena returned. Emery greeted me with open irritation. "Mom, Serena earned top of her class, I promised her a vacation. Why recall us so abruptly?" I drew Quinn to my side. "This is your daughter." Emery barked a laugh. "Impossible. I have one daughter, Serena." Richard tried to soothe her. "Ahooey, calm down, listen to Mom first." Serena stared at him, face bloodless. I tossed the paternity file and investigator's report onto the coffee table. Emery read, then exactly as the novel foretold folded Serena into her arms. "Serena is still my daughter. No one will take the love we give her. His shoulders sank, she tried to duck behind me. I held her in place and made her face the parents who had discarded her. I looked at Emery with cold disappointment. No living creature survives on your affection alone. He needs nothing from you. She is Vance blood, and she is the sole heir to the Vance empire. I took his hand and walked away, leaving Emery sputtering and Serena pale as ash. I told James to arrange everything for his new school and handle every last detail. Seeing how invested I was, he didn't dare cut corners. Serena had always believed she was the only Vance daughter, so just like her mother she kept her distance from me. Now that she knows the truth, she's constantly at my elbow, sweet-talking, "Grandma, let me take Younger to school on her first day." A little girl's game is transparent, but when I saw the hunger in his eyes I didn't refuse. Some lessons can only be learned by living them. My job is to keep a steady hand on the tiller while she grows. Sure enough, when classes ended he came home looking miserable. I stroked her hair and asked how the day had gone. She hesitated, then whispered, head down, "Grandma, am I stupid? I don't feel like a Vance at all." I smiled. Who in this family looks more like me than you? I knew the script. Today Serena had volunteered to squire Quinn around campus, then made sure everyone saw how clumsy and out of place the new girl was. Don't measure yourself against them, just be better than yesterday's Quinn. Tears shimmered in her eyes. I understand, Grandma. I won't let you down. I could never be disappointed in you. The moment he was home I turned to reclaiming the company. Richard may sign the memos, but I am still chairwoman. The book says the crash comes after my death, yet the rot is already showing. Since Richard took the wheel he has surrounded himself with Margaret's advice and stuffed Southgate with Vance cousins who treat Vance equity like a buffet. The firm is being nibbled hollow. I swept back in and fired the deadwood, demoted the overstretched. The old shareholders remember my younger self and kept quiet. Richard, however, panicked because I axed Margaret's brother Victor. Victor had started as a clerk, then Richard promoted him to manager. There he siphoned cash and sold our trade secrets, fattening the Vance clan on Vance blood. He's only the most visible rat, but ousting him fires a warning shot. Richard burst in frantic. Mom, how could you fire Ahui's brother? Do you still remember your own last name? I tossed the dossier I've compiled onto his desk. He scanned it, stunned. Impossible. Victor would never dash. I walked out, disgusted. I'd handed him the company thinking he couldn't expand but might at least hold the fort while I bred a real successor. Instead he let sentiment blind him. Predictably, Richard and Margaret had a blazing row. Margaret wailed that I'd shown no mercy, but she could only vent at Richard, who was already mopping up Victor's mess plus fielding her attacks. For the first time in his life Richard shouted, "Enough! Do you want the Vance name replaced with Vance?" Margaret froze, eyes reddening. That's not what I meant. Serena stayed silent. Quinn watched me, words stuck in her throat. Do you know why we're here? I asked Quinn. She shook her head. I explained, your mother married into this family and felt belittled by outsiders. She aches for her brother to shine inside Vance so no one can say she's unworthy of your father. But leaning on others is building on sand. The same goes for you too. I glanced at Serena. Everything you enjoy stands on the Vance foundation. If that pillar cracks, you're nothing. Smart people use what they have to build their own footing. If the first Vance falls, a second or third can rise provided you've forged your own worth. Greed is older than history, but humans differ from beasts, we can choose restraint. He nodded slowly. I looked past her at Serena, listening without seeming to, and hoped she was listening like a clever girl. For his high school days ran smoothly. She learned to speak up, to leverage every resource within reach, and the gap between her and Serena narrowed so narrow that Serena felt the heat. They entered the same competition. Quinn, through sheer grind, outscored her. Margaret, fed Serena's spin, swallowed the tale that he had plagiarized Serena's practice portfolio. When Quinn stepped through the door Margaret slapped her, snarling, no daughter of mine would stoop so low. Stealing older's work, how poisonous can you be? His voice shook. Mom, I didn't steal anything. Incensed, Margaret ordered her to kneel and apologize. I arrived in time to pull Quinn up, rubbing my temple. What's going on? That little thief swiped older's entry and won, yet she denies it. Jealous and fake at her age, what will she become? I kept my voice level. Evidence? She's new, of course she cheated to beat Serena. I slapped Margaret. She gaped. Mom. Feels awful to be struck without cause, doesn't it? He is your daughter, not a punching bag. Accuse without proof, what kind of mother does that? Margaret glared at him. A daughter like her? I'd rather have none. I frowned. This tantrum wasn't about the contest, it was punishment for firing her brother. My disappointment ran deep. We don't educate children this way. Next time, you and Serena can find another roof. So be it, I said, and took his hand and walked out of the drawing room. His tears fell, she sniffled but said nothing. I sighed. You don't get to choose the circumstances of your birth. You don't have to live for people who don't love you. He nodded. I know, Grandma. Maybe my warning to Emery had worked. However much she disliked Quinn these days, she did nothing overt. Serena had also read my attitude and understood exactly where each girl stood in this house. Her only real ally was Emery, so she didn't dare sow discord in front of her, afraid that if she truly enraged me I would throw them both out. When the college entrance results arrived, both Quinn and Serena had scored brilliantly. We held a graduation gala for them at home. According to the script, the Sterlings would attend, and at the party both girls would fall head over heels for Adrian at first sight. I tried to dodge that plot point and gave explicit orders not to send the Sterlings an engraved invitation, but by a twist of fate James still slipped one into the mail. One look at the emotion in his eyes told me the story had simply taken the long way round and arrived back at its destined beginning. Under my steering the dance was thriving, and the Sterlings, scenting opportunity, extended an olive branch. They wanted a strategic marriage. I had never bothered to secure an empire with wedding vows, so I refused outright. Emery looked frantic. Mom, the Sterlings want an alliance. Why on earth would you turn them down? I stood in the garden watering the roses and answered only after a long pause. The Vance family empire doesn't need a marriage to keep it alive. But the Sterlings are powerful these days, a match would be nothing but gain. And I hear Adrian is young but frighteningly capable. This is a rare chance. Emery's voice was urgent. I glanced at her. Which girl did you have in mind? Serena, of course. She stopped halfway through the sentence, eyeing me warily. Mom, what do you mean? There is only one Vance daughter. Tell me, who do you think would actually be sent to the altar? Emery's face went blank with shock. No, Mom, Serena is family too. She's lived here for over 10 years, you can't play favorites. I shook my head. I told you long ago, Emery, he is our sole heir. Other families may not know Serena's real origins, but the Sterlings do. They would never accept her. If you truly want what's best for Serena, have her use the resources around her and build her own foundation. Emery clenched her jaw. And if Adrian himself wants to marry Serena? As long as she doesn't harm Vance's interests, I won't stand in her way. Fine. Within limits, I would not block Serena or Emery. As she said, an alliance with the Sterlings offers gains and no loss. In the original plot it was Serena who handed the Vance to them on a platter. Businessmen chase profit, a piece of meat served willingly is never ignored. So I bear the Sterlings no grudge, but because of that, if Serena still dreams of marrying in, she'd better bring enough chips to the table. He chose the finance program at a university. The lead professor is a junior of mine, and under his guidance she would learn plenty. Serena picked computer science at B University, becoming Adrian's junior by discipline. From the day of the graduation gala, Serena began frequenting the Sterling mansion, but Sterling remained cool toward her while repeatedly inviting Quinn for tea. I didn't interfere with his choices. She went several times, but the last time she came home she told me she no longer wished to visit. Sterling invited you again, why refuse? I asked. He peeked at my expression and mumbled, "Every time I go, older singles me out. I don't want a public quarrel and give the neighbors a show." I smiled and waved her over. "Don't you like Adrian?" His face flamed scarlet, her whole manner turning shy. "I do, kind of. But Older likes him too, and he seems no more partial to me than to her. I can't pour tea and fawn over him the way she does, running at his beck and call." "Grandma, you also said one must love oneself before loving anyone else." "He doesn't seem like the right fit for me." I stroked her hair, proud. I had worried she would pine for Adrian, just as the book foretold, and end up bitter. Instead, the girl I raised was bright and self-respecting. His distance let Serena breathe easier. During university, Quinn entered one competition after another, joined her professors' projects, and matured fast. Talented people surrounded her, yet she noticed none of them, single-minded about her studies. Serena trailed Adrian to every dinner, her life reduced to currying favor with the Sterlings. She even knew by heart what Sterling and Adrian loved or hated. At commencement, I arranged an internship for him inside Vance headquarters and asked Serena about her plans. She hemmed and hawed until she finally said she was joining Adrian's startup. I smiled and inclined my head in consent. He began at entry level. Perhaps because of her hard childhood she could endure hardship, reflect on mistakes, and listen to advice. She handled assignments so well that veterans praised her as my youthful echo. Serena, meanwhile, withered daily. Word said she left at dawn and returned at midnight, grinding for Adrian's company, too busy to eat. One night I woke for water and, passing the living room, saw light spilling from the kitchen. I stepped closer and found Serena reeking of alcohol, disheveled and bleary, hunting through cupboards for a drink. I called a maid to brew sober-up broth. Only then did Serena notice me, flustered. "Grandma." I left her with a single admonition, "Don't drink like this again," and went upstairs. I dispatched Quinn to our Southgate subsidiary to be honed. On the eve of her departure I asked, "Everyone else fights to avoid a posting that far away, are you willing?" He laughed. "Of course. I'd beg for a chance to stretch myself." "Aren't you afraid of failing?" "Worried, sure, but I trust myself. And besides, Grandma, I've got you at my back." She slipped behind me and began kneading my shoulders ingratiatingly. I chuckled. All right, go ahead, then. With Grandma in your corner, go do your worst." Adrian's company was also taking shape. These days Serena's eyes sparkled, and even Emery drifted into my line of sight more often. "Out with it, what's going on lately?" Emery shot me a smug look, settled onto the sofa, and took a sip of the tea Serena handed her before she finally spoke. "All these years our Serena has been working at Adrian's company, right? For Adrian's firm she's come home late and left early, forgotten to eat, even drank herself into the hospital to land clients. If you ask me, half of Adrian's current success is Serena's doing. A while ago Sterling said she understood Serena's heart and would come to our house to talk things over one of these days." I was a little surprised. "Talk about what?" "Naturally the marriage between Adrian and Serena." I gave a small laugh. "I saw Sterling at the charity gala the other day, but she never mentioned anything about the children to me." "Mom, they're observing protocol, they'll come formally in a few days." Emery waved it off. "All right." Sure enough, a few days later Sterling arrived, arms full of gifts. The moment she saw me she greeted me effusively, then glanced around. Noticing Quinn wasn't there, she quickly asked, "Aunt Eleanor, where's Quinn?" "I sent her to gain experience at the Southgate branch." "Oh, I see." Disappointment flickered in her eyes. Serena, standing nearby, grew anxious when she realized Sterling hadn't mentioned her. "Aunt Sterling," she called. Only then did Sterling seem to notice her, taking her hands. "My, it's been a while Serena, you're even more beautiful." Serena lowered her head shyly. Sterling turned to me. "Aunt Eleanor, what I came for today concerns Serena." Hope filled Serena's eyes. "I've watched Serena grow up. These past years she's helped Adrian tremendously in business and shown me great care, a truly lovable girl. I have only one Richard, no daughter. She glanced at Emery, then back at me, and continued with a smile, today I'd like to adopt Serena as my goddaughter if the two of you have no objection. Emery's water glass crashed to the floor with a sharp crack. I looked at the two of them without the least surprise. As long as the child agrees, I have no objection. Serena's face turned pale. Aunt Sterling, you. Before she could finish, Emery jumped in, demanding, what do you mean? Weren't you going to have Serena marry Adrian? Oh, Vance, you've misunderstood. A sweet girl like Serena, how could I bear to match her with my unruly boy? Emery wanted to argue further, but I stopped her. I looked at Sterling. Does Adrian know about this? Of course, he's very grateful to Serena. He says he's long regarded her as a younger sister. I smiled. Today's performance had just flushed Serena and Emery's years of effort down the drain. I maintained polite small talk and saw Sterling to the door. The instant she left, Serena collapsed weeping into Emery's arms. Mom, the Sterlings are downright bullying us, Emery fumed. I asked the maid to brew me a fresh cup of tea. I believe I warned you, merchant families prize profit above all. Favor can't be bought with hard work alone. They must be planning a strategic marriage with another house and came today so as not to sour relations with the Vance family. A flash of resentment crossed Emery's eyes. Mom, if you'd only acknowledged Serena's status back then, this wouldn't have happened. If Quinn hadn't come home, the Vance family would have had only Serena, the Sterlings would have rushed to propose. They wouldn't dare take this high-handed tone. I set my teacup down with a thud. Have I spoiled you so much that you dare speak like this? I haven't thrown Serena out, that's already generous. They discard the donkey once the grinding's done, yet instead of blaming them you reproach your own daughter. You're growing muddle-headed with age. Do you imagine she came for you and Serena? She came for the Vance name. Emery shrank back, then asked after a moment, then let Serena join Vance? No. Mom, Quinn can dash, he is my heir. What about Serena? I asked her back then, she chose Adrian's company herself. Well, no one could have known the Sterlings would be like this. I stood and glanced at Serena. A smart person minimizes losses, not keeps throwing good money after bad. With that I returned to my room. When I'd first awakened to my fate, I'd felt plenty of resentment towards Serena, Emery, even Richard. But as time passed and reality diverged from the novel's script, I found it hard to blame a little girl who hadn't yet done anything. Disposition is shaped less by genes than by environment. Emery's excessive indulgence bred the Serena of the book. Now, with my interference, everyone is veering into uncharted territory. My only hope is that she proves intelligent. The next evening Serena knelt before me, declaring she knew her errors and had failed my teachings all these years. I told her to rise. She stood at a loss while I stroked my cane. I knew this wasn't true repentance, merely timely pragmatism. She'd realized the Sterlings were a dead end and that the Vance family empire held nothing earmarked for her. Speak. What do you want? Grandma, when I joined Adrian's company I bought some equity. Since they never intended me to marry in, staying there is pointless. I want to enter Vance, and I'd like to give those shares to you. I know I have no claim to Vance equity, but I still want to learn inside the company even from the entry level so when younger takes over I can help more. I know you blame my biological mother for switching Quinn and me, but I've always seen myself as a Vance and Quinn as my real younger sister. I beg you, give me a chance. Those few sentences showed she had woken up. Perhaps her own setbacks and his experiences had finally made my warnings sink in. Adrian's firm, though promising, is still too small to catch old money eyes. Trading her shares for a foothold inside Vance was shrewd. Even if I withhold equity after my death, Emery and Richard will never let Serena end up with nothing. I thought for a moment. Vance isn't a turnstile you can stroll through. If you want in, start at the Southgate office. His there, when she comes back, you can come with her. Gavel down. Serena would enter Vance only if Quinn approved. While Quinn stayed away, Serena stayed out, locking the gate on whatever scheme Serena might hatch next. Her face paled, but she agreed. Emery hated the idea of Serena exiled to that backwater, yet she lacked the nerve to say so outright. Instead she circled me, sighing how much she missed Quinn. I laughed to myself, smarter than she used to be, at least she'd learned to speak in curves. He phoned me often, marveling that Older had changed. Older used to snipe at you every chance she got. Aren't you angry? Besides the little traps she set when I first arrived and you slapped her down for, she's been fine. Women don't have to shred each other. Adrian broke her heart, now she funnels everything into work. So you no longer resent your mother for playing favorites? I did, until I noticed you favored me too. Then it felt petty. Mom's tragic, she leans on Dad, on Uncle, on Older, never on herself. That's why every rumor sends her scrambling to protect what she thinks she'll lose. You psychoanalyze everyone, but are you holding your own trophies tight? Relax, Grandma. I'm building the Southgate branch so well I could come home in a few years. Even if I never sit at Vance headquarters, I'll land on my feet anywhere. I beamed. That's my girl. I'll be waiting for the day you annex Vance itself. Soon the Sterlings announced a strategic marriage with the Wongs. With Serena gone, Emery had no one to gossip with. Loneliness nudged her toward my sitting room. My longtime nurse whispered, "The madam's trying to get close to you." I rubbed my temples so long as she stopped creating messes. Both daughters absent, Emery had time to replay her life. Winter arrived, and for the first time she hand-knit scarves for both girls. I lifted an eyebrow. Even Quinn? She flushed. They're both my daughters. A pause. Serena called to say he's been helping her. Since the sisters are finally friends, I should treat them equally. I'd never expected conversion, but peaceful coexistence would do. 3 years later Quinn and Serena came home. He dashed into my arms. Grandma, I missed you. And I you. She studied me. You look younger. Smooth years will do that. He returned to Vance and handled the work with new poise. I swelled with pride. I allowed Serena into the company, but not a single share of equity would ever bear her name. She applied herself diligently. The spoiled edge had dulled, ambition, however, still flickered hot. He asked to launch a startup. She had absorbed fresh ideas in Southgate, spotted a new lane, and refused to gamble Vance on it. She wanted her own sandbox first. I greenlit capital and connections. I, too, was curious what she'd learned. To my surprise, Serena petitioned to leave Vance and co-found the venture. You fought years for a Vance desk. Walk away now and the door locks behind you. I know, Grandma. Vance's roots are thick, it won't miss one leaf. But his sapling needs hands, and we clicked in Southgate. Let me help her. Clever girl. Vance, however vast, would never grant her ownership, a newborn company just might. I've always prized hunger, it fuels assent. Go. He delivered. She surfed the zeitgeist, seized the moment, and the startup soared. Serena bled for it too. On IPO day Quinn found me. Grandma, I want to give Older equity. I smiled. Your company, your call. She nestled against me like childhood. Without you I'd never have made it. Older sacrificed plenty, I know what she hungers for. She's earned it. I stroked her hair. Decide, and remember, whether this firm or Vance, you're at the helm. People like Older will always circle. Learn to reward and to punish. I will. When Serena received the certificate, her eyes shimmered. She had claimed a piece of the world on her own. He eventually returned to Vance, leaving the new firm in Serena's steady hands. Serena did not disappoint. Neither sister married. Unexpectedly Emery turned up pregnant at 40+, insisted on carrying to term, and delivered a girl. He carried the infant to me. Grandma, look younger, is my mini-me. Yes, a snapshot of you at that age. I used to fear Vance might die out. Now I'm calm. I'll groom younger the way you groomed me. Good. The day I died, Vance stood at the apex of Riverdale. Quinn, the pathbreaker, had steered the dynasty to its summit. As it flourished, Sterling came sniffing after Serena, finally sensing the asset she was. Serena declined, perhaps she'd made peace, she needed no patron to win her prizes. Everyone traveled their chosen road, each ending rounded. Looking back, that prophecy may have been nothing more than a wake-up call. The end.